It is with profound sadness that we announce the death of Gilbert Gerardo George, also known as Alberto of La Pointe Monrepo, who passed away at approximately 3:30 p.m. at the St. Jude Hospital on Thursday, 18 September 2014. He was 24 years old. Left to mourn his mother, Margaret Descartes George, retired teacher of the Passias Combined School. His father, Albert George, better known as Mansol of La Pointe Monrepo. His brother, Joshua George, a student of the South Louis Community College. His grandparents, Dennis Descartes and Elmona Descartes, better known as Chito of La Pointe Monrepo. His aunts, Mrs. Iola Cicely Henderson and Mrs. Gertrude Tido Ayanyola of the United Kingdom. Mrs. Agatha O'Shaughnessy, retired nurse of the St. Jude Hospital, who was also his godmother. Mrs. Emma Serrier, retired teacher of the Passias Combined School. His loving aunt, Corporal Joan Descartes of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Mrs. Virgilia Amab of La Pointe. Mrs. Frances Harry and Mrs. Micah Cox of La Pointe. Miss Sheila Monero of the United Kingdom. Mrs. Olga William of La Pointe, Miss Lucia William of Sarot, Miss Imelda Albert of Grosley, ma femme and family from Auger, mi femme and family from Martinique. His uncles, Mr. George Descartes of the United Kingdom, Mr. Irenaeus Descartes of Descartes Laboratories, Mr. Emmanuel Descartes, retired meteorological officer of Passias, Mr. Venantius Descartes, director of meteorological services, Mr. Cornelius Dollier, mason of La Pointe, Mr. Mathurin Descartes, mason of La Pointe, Mr. Linus Descartes, mechanic of La Pointe, Mr. Solomon Descartes of Castries, Mr. Samuel Descartes, mason of La Pointe, Mr. Michael Monero of Domel, Derisseau. Granduncles, Joseph Brisfair of Cicero Castries, Mr. Morrison Leord Dollier of La Pointe. Uncles-in-law, Stanley O'Shaughnessy, Cuthbert Amab, Marcus Cox, Raymond William, all of La Pointe, Sanders Serrier of Passias. Aunts-in-law, Farina Descartes, Velma Descartes. His cousins, Mr. Percival O'Shaughnessy, Mr. Walter Martelli and Mr. Nelson Serrier, all residing in the United States of America. Mr. Lemuel O'Shaughnessy, meteorological officer of La Pointe. Mr. Mike O'Shaughnessy of La Pointe. Mr. MacDonald Ismond, Mrs. Lydia Ossie, and Mr. Gavin Henderson, residing in the United Kingdom. Mr. Werner Serrier of Passias, Mr. Vaughan Serrier of Escop, Mr. Lon Serrier of Castries, Mr. Neil Serrier of Passias, Mr. Harry Serrier of Passias, Mrs. Wanda Octave of Beauséjour, Mrs. Sarah Lesmond of Corinth, Miss Victoria Charles and family of La Pointe, Ronnie Descartes of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, Miss Fontenelle Descartes of Angers Secondary School, Shirley and Maxwell William of the UK, Bernadette Fontenelle of the U.S.A, Dinah Mesidor of the U.S.A, Dean Descartes of Migu, Nicole Vaval of Derisseau, Leslie Maffre of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, Ed James of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, Vernon and Willan Descartes of La Pointe, and the Descartes of Passias, Casey Martelli of the Passias Combined School, Mrs. Laurentia Baptist and family of Latouny, Linda Shalry of Monrepo. Numerous close relatives and friends including Gregory T. Plack Descartes of La Pointe, Genevieve Maffre of the U.S.A, Gria Leo of La Pointe, Mr. Gregory Modest of La Pointe, Edward Serrier of Monrepo, Anne-Marie Stanislas of La Pointe, Bernadette O'Brien of La Pointe, Peter Descartes of La Pointe, Cheriana Shalry, Simon Talu Descartes, Sylvia Charles Hines and Rosalind Altius of the U.S.A, Gregory Julien of Citygate Castries, Agnes Liffey Emile of the UK, Jonathan Descartes of La Pointe. Neighbors, Bertha and Joseph Chalry of the U.S.A., Lucie Descartes, Magdalene Maffray and family, Lyra Descartes, all of La Pointe. Also left to mourn are the Descartes, Chalry, William, Miro, Maffray, Dollier and Joseph families. The funeral service of the late Gilbert Gerardo Joseph, also known as Alberto, will be held on Friday, 26 September 2014 at St. Anne's Parish in Monrepos at 3 p.m. and then to the Monrepos Cemetery for burial. The body will be exposed for viewing at the church from 2:30 p.m. The body now lies at Lazarus Funeral Home, New Dock Road, Vieux Fort. May he rest in peace.